Father, mother, sister, wherever your spirits are in heaven, please watch over me and guide my revenge. My sister, the Empress, is dead. Her face was gaunt, and black blood dripped from her eyes, nose, and mouth. This woman, who should have been the most noble lady in all of the Dew Kingdom, died in absolute silence. When they returned her body to our estate, they just threw her carelessly in front of the gates. And along with her corpse came a secret imperial decree. The Empress has brought chaos to the imperial harem. She committed suicide by drinking poison. Her crimes are monstrous. Every single member of the Wan family, young and old alike, the men shall all be exiled, and the women forced into the state brothels to learn how to serve men as a warning to others. When mother saw my sister's body, she fainted on the spot. My father, always so rigid and stern, had his hair turn white overnight. Sister was the pride of our entire family. She was dignified, graceful, and beautiful both inside and out. In her 5 years as Empress, she truly became a mother to the nation. She was our parents' greatest pride and the ultimate role model for every woman in the Wan family. To claim that my sister brought chaos to the harem, we, the Wan family, would never believe it. My father, the Grand Minister of the Dew Kingdom, had dedicated 30 years of exhausting devotion to the nation and its people. He bowed his head, which had been held high with pride for 30 years, and reached out to the court officials. He only hoped they would speak up for justice and persuade the emperor to launch a new investigation. But those court officials, who used to be so incredibly warm and called him brother, now shut their doors to him. Some even severed ties with him on the spot, accusing our Yan family of harboring filth and corruption. My father was so furious he literally spat blood. Driven to absolute desperation, my father threw away all his pride. He resorted to the very tactic he had always despised the most, kneeling outside the palace gates for 3 days and 3 nights, begging for justice for his daughter and for a Wan family. He paid no mind to the servants walking by, pointing and mocking him. For the sake of the Wan family's generation-long honor and my sister's innocence, my father endured it all. He only prayed that the emperor would show mercy and reopen the case. But all he received in return was a verbal decree from the emperor. If you persist in this harassment, all 38 members of the Wan family shall be executed. Out of sheer despair, my father took his own life, smashing his head against the government gates. By the time they finally brought his body back home,
my mother had already hanged herself that very night.
In just a matter of days, I lost every single person I loved, kneeling before the mourning hall and staring at the 3 coffins in front of me. I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to die too, but I wanted revenge. Even more. Revenge for my father, my mother, and my sister. Even if I had to enter the Imperial Entertainment Bureau and become the lowliest servant, I would do it without a second thought. I kowtowed 3 times with all my heart. Father, mother, sister, if your spirits are watching over me from heaven, you must protect me, so I can avenge you all. The desperate cries for mercy, the agonizing wails, the cold, lifeless bodies. Once again, I woke up in a cold sweat, gasping from the nightmare. Wiping the sweat from my forehead, I got dressed and out of bed, a routine I knew all too well. 4 years. For 4 long years in this wretched bureau, I haven't slept peacefully for a single night. Today is Noble Consort Song's birthday. As a dancer who has only trained in the bureau for 3 or 4 years, I shouldn't even be qualified to perform at today's banquet. But the head matron told me that some powerful noble showed mercy and specifically requested me. That's the only reason I got a spot to perform today. After 4 years of endless struggle and enduring unimaginable suffering, I am finally stepping back into that place that devours people alive. The crimson walls and golden tiles, so majestic, yet so cold. No matter how many times I look at it, this imperial palace still fills me with nothing but dread and terror. The last time I set foot in here, it was to celebrate my sister's birthday. Back then, I was so innocent and naive. I thought everyone in the palace was kind and warm. I only wanted to visit more often, just to be by my sister's side. She was pregnant back then, radiating with the beautiful glow of an expectant mother. She would gently hold my hand, telling me to take care of myself and reminding me to always look after our father. Who could have known that the next time I saw her, she would be nothing but a cold, lifeless corpse, and my entire family would be utterly destroyed. Forcing myself to snap out of my thoughts, I followed the other dancers, led by a young eunuch, to wait outside Noble Consort Song's changing hall. As the lowliest dancers from the entertainment bureau, we weren't even worthy of having a place to sit and rest. And of course, no one is going to offer us a single drop of water. So we are left standing in the middle of the courtyard, baking under the scorching sun for 2 whole hours. Finally, a palace maid struts over. She stops, right in front of our line. Well, if it isn't the high and mighty second miss of the Wan family. I slowly look up and recognize her immediately. It is Chulin, the head maid of Noble Consort Song. Back when I used to visit the palace, she would always cling to my side, trying so hard to flatter me with every single word. This servant pays her respects to Miss Chunlin, I say, obediently bowing my head to greet her. Chunlin's face turns cold. She glances at the person leading us and sneers. Has the Jivo Funksy become so ignorant of the rules these days? A lowly courtess doesn't even know to kneel and pay respects when she sees me? How dare you behave so insolently in my presence? You little wench! Hurry up and kowtow to apologize to Sister Chunlin. Before I can even react, the little eunuch steps forward, rushing right up to me, and kicks me hard. Gasping in pain, I crash heavily onto the ground. But I do not dare to delay for a second. I scramble back up to my knees in front of Chunlin, desperately kowtowing. This servant knows her mistake. Please forgive me. My movements are practiced and seamless. After all, this is far from the first time I have dealt with this. In the palace, sucking up to the powerful and trampling on the weak is just the way of life. During my past few years in the Jiangxi, being beaten for no reason, being starved and deprived of sleep for days, being shoved into freezing ponds, I have suffered countless humiliations like these. At first, I tried to fight back, but that only brought even more brutal punishment. Eventually, I learned my lesson, and I learned to endure. Gonem looks down at me, thoroughly satisfied. Smirking triumphantly, she takes a step forward and stomps directly onto the back of my hand. She grinds her heel down with absolute malice. You may rise, second Miss Wang. A sharp gasp of agony escapes my throat. Chunlin tells me to rise, but her foot does not budge from the back of my hand. I have no choice but to stay on my knees. While I can barely tolerate the searing pain in my hand, the agonizing throb in my lower back makes my head spin. The kick from that little eunuch just now was brutal. I think my bone is dislocated. The agonizing pain, combined with going days without food, makes me feel so weak, like I could pass out at any second. Just as I was on the verge of fainting in front of Chunlin, a clear, sharp voice rang out. A man slowly walked over. He had sharp, handsome features, a tall, slender build, and carried himself with an undeniable air of nobility. The dancers immediately dropped to their knees, even though they didn't know who he was. Anyone who could move through the palace so freely, with such an aristocratic aura, had to be of high status. I looked up at him, and instantly lowered my head. It was Song Zhao, noble consort Song's younger brother. The very first person to cut ties with us, after my family fell from grace, and call off our engagement. I heard that after that, Consort Song became the noble consort, receiving the imperial seal to run the inner palace. As for Song Zhao, he got engaged to Princess Yongjia, the emperor's own sister. They say they're getting married at the end of this year. The Song family's influence is completely unmatched right now. Having fully replaced my family's position in court, Song Zhao glanced down at me, his face twisting with disgust, as he were looking at something absolutely repulsive, before quickly turning his gaze away. Then, he said coldly, 4 years in the music registry, and you still haven't learned any manners. How utterly embarrassing. Zhuan family truly is pathetic and low class. With that, he looked at Chunlin. Let go. My sister is waiting for me. Chunlin nodded obsequiously. Then, she spat right at me. The noble consort showed mercy by letting you into the palace to perform today. If you mess anything up, I won't even need her orders to end you myself. Having spewed her threats, Chunlin turned and led Song Zhao away. Only after they were far out of sight. Did the other dancers finally stand up, trembling with fear? As for me, I remained on my knees, staring at their retreating figures, my mind racing with a million chaotic thoughts. Back then, to beg for my hand in marriage, Song Zhao knelt outside my sister's Weiyang palace for 3 whole days. He did it to prove his devotion, begging my sister to bless our marriage, just to make me happy. Just to make me happy? He spent every single day picking out thoughtful little gifts for me, braving rain or shine to travel all the way to the capital. Everyone praised his devotion, saying how incredibly lucky I was. Even my father was so moved that he finally agreed to the match. Song Zhao said he loved my innocence and my free-spirited nature. He swore he would love me for the rest of his life. Now, I'm nothing but an embarrassment to him, someone who doesn't know her place. As night falls, the Chongjing Palace is ablaze with lights. The sounds of music and laughter fill the air, while I stand at the very back of the line, fighting through agonizing pain. Waves of dizziness wash over me. I bite down hard on the tip of my tongue, forcing myself to stay conscious. The headmaid told me that some high and mighty noble specifically demanded I dance before the emperor. Then Chunlin and Song Zhao conveniently showed up to put me in my place. With Chunlin's threats still ringing in my ears, even a fool would realize that this noble person is none other than noble consort Song, and tonight is clearly a trap. For a powerful consort to go out of her way to summon a lowly servant like me, under the alias Fonzie, into the palace, going to all this trouble certainly isn't just to deal with a nobody like me. There are only 2 people in this world worthy of a noble consort scheme. One is the emperor himself, and the other is the first prince. Just thinking of the first prince sends a sharp pang through my chest. When my sister gave birth to him, she suffered a terrible, obstructed labor. She almost lost her life. Right then and there. My sister used to tell me that the first prince was her entire life. She even begged me, saying that if anything ever happened to her, I had to watch over the first prince and keep him safe. At the time, I thought she was just being paranoid after a difficult birth, teasing her that motherhood had made her overly dramatic. But looking back now, she must have known something. That has to be why she was murdered. After her death, Noberhard handed the 3-year-old first prince over to noble consort Song to raise. He has been perfectly safe all these years, and everyone praises the noble consort for doting on him so deeply. They all believe she genuinely loves him, as if he were her own. Later, I heard that noble consort Song was highly rewarded for raising the first prince. The emperor showered her with love and affection, and because of the first prince, the emperor frequented her palace and spent most of his nights there. Then last year, noble consort Song, who had been childless for years after entering the palace, actually became pregnant with an imperial heir. She gave birth to a baby prince this year, bringing her unmatched power and glory. But rumor has it that even though she is now a noble consort and has given birth to a prince, she can never become the empress. They say the emperor's love for the late empress runs too deep. Even though the late empress made a grave mistake, the emperor still loves her so much that he refuses to let anyone else rule Weiyang Palace. Every year, the emperor spends an entire month alone in Weiyang Palace, just to mourn her. I can only sneer at these rumors. His so-called undying love is nothing but a sick joke. After she gave birth to the second prince, the court officials started pressuring the emperor to name a crown prince and secure the throne. This should have been a good thing, but the emperor was strangely hesitant. Yet, no matter how much he hesitates, everyone knows noble consort Song's rise to absolute power is unstoppable. With 2 princes by her side, her status in the palace is unmatched. The next crown prince will definitely be one of her sons. Once the new emperor ascends the throne, she is guaranteed to become the Empress Dowager. That is why everyone is desperate to win her favor right now. Her birthday banquet this year is exceptionally grand. Looking out at the bustling banquet, I begin to piece things together. It seems the rumors of her treating the first prince like her own son are a complete lie. If she really cared about him, she would never have allowed me to appear here. My sister and I look almost identical. If the emperor sees me in the crowd, it will instantly trigger his memories of my sister. And that means he will remember what happened to her. Those dark memories will completely ruin the first prince's chances. It will force the emperor to choose the second prince over the first prince. Noble consort Song is incredibly ruthless and calculating. Yet, I have no choice but to play along. After all, I have been waiting for this exact opportunity for 4 long years. As the leading eunuch gives the command, we walk submissively toward the stage, in the center of the hall. As the lead dancer, I take my place at the very center of the stage. And that's why I'm the one who stands out the most. As I make my entrance, the cheerful chatter and laughter at the banquet instantly grind to a halt. My sister and I look almost identical. The only difference is the tiny cinnabar mole right between her brows. The emperor has always adored stunning, delicate beauties. She once told me the emperor loved her cinnabar mole the most. So today I drew a matching cinnabar mole right between my own brows. Anyone who knew my sister only has to look at me, and for a fleeting second, they'll think they've seen her ghost. And that's exactly why the entire room has gone dead silent. As the music starts to play, we begin our dance. I fight through the searing pain, forcing my body to move gracefully. My eyes sweep across the banquet hall, shading every single face. The person who framed my sister? Seeing me like this, he might just let their guard down and slick up. I see the minor concubines trembling in fear. I see noble consort Song watching with a mocking smile. And I see the emperor. His face is absolutely livid. He's gripping his cup so hard his knuckles are white. I even see the 7-year-old first prince, his little face tense with anger, glaring at me with pure disgust. Suddenly, a loud crash. The emperor slams his wine cup onto the ground with furious force. Shards of porcelain shatter and fly everywhere, sending a jolt of terror through everyone in the room as the emperor lets out a deafening roar. Everyone instantly drops to their knees, trembling. The other dancers are scared out of their wits, scrambling to throw themselves to the floor. Out of everyone, I'm the only one left standing on the stage, staring right back at the emperor on his dragon throne. The air in the room feels suffocatingly thin. No one dares to even breathe. The wrath of an emperor is truly terrifying. But I'm not afraid. Not today. I've waited 4 long years for this moment. It's either success or death, and I do not fear death. Everyone notices that I'm still standing. I can feel a barrage of intense gazes locking onto me. Some are filled with pity, some with mockery, and others are just waiting to watch me burn. Meanwhile, a sharp, agonizing pain shoots through my stomach. That was my cue. A sweet, metallic taste spilled from the corner of my mouth. Soon after, dark, reddish-black blood began to trickle from my nose and the corners of my eyes. Right now, I must look exactly like my sister did when she died, bleeding black blood from every orifice of my face. I scanned the room. I saw the sudden shock flash across noble consort Song's eyes. I saw the utter disbelief in the eldest prince's eyes, and in Song Zhao's eyes, I saw disgust, mixed with a sickening sense of relief. Finally, my gaze landed on the emperor. I watched his furious face instantly freeze in pure shock. Then, panic and violent rage took over. He bolted upright and lunged toward me, and roared, "Lue! Hurry! Summon the imperial physicians!" A weight lifted from my heart. I secretly whispered to myself, I had won the bet. Then, darkness swallowed me whole. I had carefully measured the dose of poison this time. Though it looked incredibly fatal, it wasn't actually enough to kill me. As I drifted in and out of consciousness, I felt someone gripping my hand tightly. Anxious whispers echoed in my ear. You must not die, Qing Qing. My sister, the Empress, was named Wan Qingqing. In this world, the only one who could call her Kling Qing, besides our deceased parents, was the supreme and noble emperor himself. My sister once told me, her face glowing with happiness, that the emperor was the most loving man in the world. And seeing their 5 years of devotion to each other, I used to believe it too. But the deaths of my sister and father, and the torture of dozens of my family members, taught me that emperors have no real heart. I felt myself being laid onto a soft bed. I felt the imperial physician taking my pulse. I heard him tell the emperor that I had been poisoned for a long time, that my body was extremely weak, and that I hadn't eaten in days. My body had endured prolonged abuse and torture, and the bones around my waist felt dislocated from a recent kick. Then, I heard the emperor's furious roar. I heard him ordering a thorough investigation and demanding the physicians watch over me day and night. I knew then I had succeeded, and with that, I finally drifted into deep darkness. I was just so tired. I really needed to rest. Thanks to the herbal antidote prepared by the imperial physicians, I finally woke up. 3 days later, I stared up at the familiar decor. I know this is the side chamber of Weiyang Palace, where my sister once lived. From the young maid tending to me, I learned the news. Over the past 3 days, the emperor has purged a group of people from the music registry, executing several of the head eunuchs, especially the young eunuch who kicked me that day. He was beaten to death with 100 strikes of the paddle. Ining Trunlun had her leg broken and was docked a year's pay. After that, the emperor even ordered a thorough investigation into my poisoning, but they found absolutely nothing. Of course they wouldn't. If they could find anything, my sister wouldn't have died such an unjust death back then. The poison I used was the toxic blood I collected from my sister's fingers when I cut them. I kept it hidden for 4 years, saving every single drop of that poison, all for this very day. And since my sister and I were poisoned by the exact same toxin, I'm sure the imperial physicians will notice. This will be more than enough to sow seeds of doubt in the emperor's mind. He will doubt whether my sister really took her own life, if someone had actually poisoned her all those years ago. As long as the emperor digs just a little deeper, he will discover what I've been through all these years in the music registry, and how many people in one way or another have tried to have me killed. As for why they want me dead, is it to silence a witness, or is someone just venting their anger? But none of that matters. What matters is that as long as the emperor suspects something, I have succeeded. It is enough to ensure I remain in the palace, and once I'm allowed to stay, my goal will be within reach. Less than 15 minutes after I woke up, Noble Consort Song arrived in grand fashion, trailing a massive entourage of maids and eunuchs. Right behind her was Song Zhao, his face dark with anger. The moment I saw Noble Consort Song, I scrambled out of bed to pay my respects. But with a look of sheer pity on her face, Noble Consort Song stepped forward to stop me. "You poor thing," she said. "Your health is fragile. You must rest. Strictly speaking, you are like a sister to me. There's no need for such formality." Yet, as if I hadn't heard a single word, I still bowed to her with the utmost respect. Noble Consort Song gently took my hand. "You have suffered so much all these years. Now that you're in the palace, I will make sure you are well taken care of. After all, the Song and Yan families have always been close. We should be supporting each other. Let's just put those past trifles behind us." Hearing Noble Consort Song's words, something shifted inside me, but right now, I didn't have the luxury to overthink it. I brushed her off, muttering that her ladyship was absolutely right. When Noble Consort Song heard me say this, her face lit up with an eager, warm smile. She turned to Song Zhao and snapped in a low voice, "Apologize to you right this instant." Song Zhao looked incredibly reluctant, but he didn't dare say a word. He took 2 steps forward, gave me a half-hearted bow, and quickly stepped back to the side. Noble Consort Song looked slightly displeased by his attitude, but she quickly forced another smile my way. "You know how men are, Zhao is just too proud to admit he's wrong. I shall apologize on his behalf." That day, it was all Chunlin's doing. She acted without permission. And Agile, well, he spoke without thinking. Please, do not take his words to heart. Zhou Yus actually missed you terribly all these years. He wanted to plead with the emperor for you and the Wan family so many times. But the emperor's temper. She trailed off. Noble Consort Song let out a long, heavy sigh, looking the picture of helpless grief. Hearing her say this, I almost laughed out loud. How utterly hypocritical. During my 4 years in Jiafengxi, I was constantly tormented and abused by the head eunuchs. I thought they were just kicking me while I was down, but one night, they got completely wasted. I overheard them whispering, and learned that Song Zhao had paid them off. He paid them to ensure I would die a slow, miserable death in that hellhole. It was at that very moment that I learned the art of endurance, because I knew if I fought back, they would only use it as an excuse to beat me to death. On countless agonizing nights, Through the searing pain, I made a vow. One day, I would make everyone who hurt me pay in blood, keeping my face completely blank. I gave a slight nod, as if playing along with Noble Consort Song's lies. Noble Consort Song offered a few more fake pleasantries, had her maid present some expensive tonics, and finally got up to take her leave. I stood up and curtsied politely. Right then, Song Zhao, who hadn't said a word, took a sudden step toward me. He hissed in my ear. Yan Yu, you really are a vile, cheap creature. You, seducing the emperor by copying your own sister. Even if your little scheme worked. So what? To him, you are nothing but a toy. Just a plaything for others to mess with? Did you really think entering the palace would change anything? Crushing you is as easy as killing an ant. With that, Song Zhou quickened his pace to catch up. It was as if Noble Consort Song felt that spending even 1 second near me would contaminate her. I watched their retreating figures. The corners of my mouth curled into a faint smile. Compared to Noble Consort Song, Song Zhao is utterly useless. Noble Consort. Song had barely left when a small figure rushed in like a whirlwind. The moment he saw me, he began to scream in anger. Why did you have to show up? It's bad enough that woman ruined everything and made father hate me. Why did you have to show up too? Is your Yan family trying to ruin me completely? Do you know how hard I've worked to become the crown prince? Why did you have to appear at such a critical moment? I looked at the young boy standing before me, whose face bore a striking resemblance to my sister. Even though he was screaming at me in a rage, I couldn't bring myself to feel even a shred of anger because he was my sister's child. He must have suffered so much in this palace over the years. He was only 7 years old. At 7, an ordinary child would still be carefree, just starting their schooling. Yet here he was, fighting for the crown in a treacherous palace where human hearts are more monstrous than ghosts. Seeing me remain silent, the first prince glared at me and said, I don't care why you're doing this. You must leave the palace immediately. Don't get in my way. I shook my head gently. I'm not leaving. Hearing this, the first prince's little face tensed up. I know exactly what you're trying to do. You want to clear my mother's name and clear the one Stabley's name. Your intentions are so obvious. Even a 7-year-old child like me can see right through you. Do you think father can't see it? Just give up already. What can a weak, helpless woman like you even accomplish? Once I take the throne, I will give the Wan family the justice they deserve. For now, you need to get out of this palace immediately. Stop getting in the way of my plans. I smiled faintly. I stepped forward and reached out, wanting to pinch his tense little cheek, but he took a step back, dodging my hand. I didn't mind. I asked him directly, can't you see why I entered the palace? I'm in targeting Consort Song. Everything she does is to make sure you never become the crown prince. Even if I leave today, Consort Song will just find other ways to ruin you. So, your problem isn't me. It's Consort Song. Shut up. Don't you dare try to drive a wedge between me and Mother Song. Since you refuse to leave, don't regret it. With that, he turned and stormed off. Watching the first prince's retreating figure as he jogged away, my height sank. Hearing him call her Mother Song made me realize how deeply Consort Song had rooted herself in his heart over the past 4 years. If I want to bring Consort Song down, my first step must be to win the first prince back. After all, if she uses him to threaten me, my hands will be completely tied. As of right now, Consort Song is the prime suspect in my sister's death. When my sister fell and my family, the Wan family, was ruined, she and the Song family benefited the most. Now, with the succession to the crown prince being such a sensitive matter, the first prince is only in more and more danger staying by her side. I thought the imperial decree conferring my title would arrive quickly. But to my surprise, 5 days passed, and still, there was no sign of it. I hadn't even seen the emperor. A sense of unease crept into my heart. Had something gone wrong? Fortunately, the Yao maids and eunuchs serving me were extremely respectful, and my food, clothing, and quarters were of the finest quality. This told me that the Imperial Household Department was still treating me with obedience.
The Imperial Household Department only acts according to the Emperor's whims.
Their compliance meant that, for now, the Emperor's stance hadn't changed. On the night of the 6th day, just as I was preparing for bed, the door to my chambers was suddenly flung open. A figure stumbled inside. I looked up and saw the Emperor, whom I hadn't seen in days. Before I could even speak, the heavy stench of alcohol hit me. He was clearly heavily drunk, his steps unsteady. His face was flushed red, and his eyes were completely dazed and unfocused. He staggered toward me, step by step. I raised my hand and gently rubbed my brow. Thank goodness I drew on the cinnabar mole today. The Emperor's eyes followed my every move, finally locking onto the cinnabar mole between my brows. Instantly, his breathing grew heavy. King Qing, you're back. You're finally back. You came back to see me. The Emperor rushed forward. and pulled me into a tight embrace. Before I could even react, his lips pressed hard against the cinnabar mole between my brows. His arms wrapped around me, squeezing tighter and tighter. This was my chance. I threw my arms around his neck and planted a soft kiss right on his Adam's apple. I felt his entire body freeze. Disbelief flashed in his eyes, and then he scooped me up and carried me straight to the bed. Years ago, after I got engaged to Song Zhao, I was so anxious. I was terrified we wouldn't get along as husband and wife. So I asked my sister, "Sister, how do you and the Emperor stay so close and in love?" She smiled and said, "Let me tell you a secret. The Emperor loves it when someone kisses his Adam's apple. If he's ever angry, just kiss him right there, and his anger will vanish. And this secret, only I know." She told me that couples need their own little secrets, and that we had to cherish each other to make a marriage last. But now, it all feels like a sick joke. Whether it's the Emperor or Song Zhao, neither of the men is worth it. The very next day, I was bestowed the title of Consort 1. The Imperial Household Department didn't even bother assigning me a new courtyard. They just let me stay right where I was, in Weiyang Palace. This sent shockwaves through the entire palace. After all, Weiyang Palace is reserved strictly for the Empress. Who was I, a mere consort, to deserve such an honor? I kept my composure, showing no reaction at all, and quietly settled into Weiyang Palace. After my promotion, nobody dared to send me congratulatory gifts. That is, until noble consort Song sent over her congratulations. Only then did the other concubines finally gather the courage to follow suit. The one who delivered the gifts on behalf of noble consort Song was Shoyao. She was once my late sister's headmaid. After the first prince was born, my sister sent Shoyao to serve by his side. When my sister passed away, she stayed with the first prince and moved to Chujing Palace. Hoya bowed to me with utmost respect. She then instructed the junior maids she brought to cross-check the gift registry with my palace staff. Once everyone had stepped out, Shoyo suddenly dropped to her knees in front of me. Tears welled in her eyes as she choked out, "Second young mistress, you finally made it through!" If Her Majesty the Empress knew of this in the afterlife, she would surely be so happy. Hearing this, my own eyes grew misty. Back when I used to visit my sister's palace, Shoyo was always the one taking care of me. And she knew me best. Seeing a familiar face from so many years ago made me feel as if a lifetime had passed. I gently helped Shoyo to her feet and quickly asked, "What really happened back then?" Shoyo had dismissed the others, clearly because she had something vital to tell me. Knowing time was short, she didn't waste any words. She got straight to the point. The Empress was completely innocent. She was framed, and noble consort Song was the one behind it. Her revelation didn't surprise me. I had expected as much. Years ago, one of the Emperor's personal guards was accused of having an affair with a consort. In the Imperial Palace, the garments of consorts and maids follow strict rules, making it incredibly easy to tell a consort's undergarment apart from a maid's. When a consort's undergarment was discovered on his bed, the Emperor was absolutely furious. Yet, he didn't want to alert the guard. He wanted to catch them red-handed. He had men shadow the guard, who followed him when he snuck out in the middle of the night. Hearing this, it all suddenly clicked for me. The guard went to Weiyang Palace. But such an obvious setup. Didn't the Emperor suspect anything? Shoyao shook her head slightly. The men tailing the guard only saw him heading toward Weiyang Palace. After that, they lost him. The Emperor ordered a full-scale search, and in the backyard of Weiyang Palace, they actually found the footprints of an Imperial guard. But by then, that guard had already ended his own life, right in his quarters. He was still clutching the weapon in his hand. It was clearly staged to look like he took his own life out of guilt. Those people are absolutely ruthless. This was far worse than a direct accusation. I left her completely defenseless, with absolutely no way to clear her name. At the time, the Emperor didn't suspect the Empress. He simply ordered his men to keep investigating. But then, on the 7th day after the guard's death, someone caught Sister Danhong, Her Highness's headmaid, privately burning paper offerings for him. Everyone immediately suspected that she was having an affair with the guard. But after a physical examination, they found that Sister Danhong was still a virgin. So, they subjected her to brutal torture to force a confession. Yet Sister Danhong refused to utter a single word. To save her, Her Highness went so far as to beg the Emperor. The Emperor promised that if Danhong named her accomplice, he would spare her. But who could have guessed that Sister Danhong would choose death over betrayal? In the end, they resorted to threatening her parents. They warned her that if she didn't speak the truth, her parents would be dragged to the grave with her. Broken by the threat, Sister Danhong finally confessed that Her Highness was the mastermind. That very night, Sister Danhong bit her tongue and ended her own life. Whether it was the guard or Sister Danhong, they seemed to be protecting Her Highness on the surface. But in reality, every single move was designed to push Her Highness straight into the abyss. The Emperor was absolutely furious. He demanded an explanation from Her Highness. But tragically, right at that moment, the first prince suddenly fell ill with a severe cold. His fever raged, refusing to break. Her Highness was sick with worry over her son. She begged the emperor just to let her see him, but this only fueled the emperor's rage. He had Her Highness locked away in Weiyang Palace. During that time, the first prince's condition kept fluctuating, and Her Highness was utterly consumed with worry for him. This only incensed the emperor further. He ordered Weiyang Palace to be completely sealed off. Not even we were permitted to step inside. 5 days passed like this. Once the emperor's anger finally cooled down, he ordered the palace doors to be opened, only to find Her Highness lying dead, poisoned. In her cold hand, she was still clutching a command token, and that token belonged to none other than the dead guard. Her Highness would never take her own life. She was so desperate to see the first prince. How could she possibly commit suicide? Someone must have poisoned her. It had to be Noble Consort Song. As she spoke, Shuo Yao's voice trembled with intense emotion. I too fell silent. The guard and Dan Hong seemed to be protecting the mastermind, but in reality, they were using their own deaths to frame my sister. Noble Consort Song was definitely the one who poisoned my sister to death. But when it came to this tragedy, the emperor deserved the most credit. It was bad enough he didn't believe my sister. But even after she died, he still refused to admit he had wrongly accused her. He even doubled down on his mistake. And to save his own face, he made sure the charges against my sister were set in stone. He even made dozens of lives in my one family pay the price for his mistake. And yet, after my sister passed away, he still had to put on a show of his deep, devoted love, keeping the inner chambers and Weiyang Palace under lock and key for years, coming to stay in Weiyang Palace for 1 month every single year, all to show how much he missed her. How utterly laughable. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and see Shuo Yao out. Once Shuo Yao is gone, I pinked the cinnabar dot between my eyebrows once again. Tonight, it is my turn to attend to him again. I must serve this affectionate emperor very, very well. Revenge must be taken one step at a time. For 5 consecutive days, the emperor came to Weiyang Palace to have me attend to him. He even had lunch at Weiyang Palace every single day. During these past few days, whether it was my eating habits or my gestures, I mimicked my sister in every way since we grew up together. Mimicking my sister was second nature to me. The emperor clearly loved it. He would often stroke the cinnabar dot between my brows, maybe kiss his Adam apple, and hold me close, mirroring Ching Ching under his breath. He showered me with gifts. Gifts so lavish that everyone in the harem took notice, including Noble Consort Song herself. I kept wondering how long Noble Consort Song could hold back. To my surprise, it didn't even take half a month for her to make her move. And she even used Song Zhao. Sure enough, when Song Zhao came over, the emperor had only just left. Clearly, Noble Consort Song's side had been keeping a close eye on my palace. Song Zhao stared at me with bloodshot eyes. His tone was incredibly gentle, just like 4 years ago. I know you hate me, but you can't just throw your life away like this. The imperial harem is a snake pit, crawling with schemes and conspiracies. I know the late empress was framed, and now, you're the only one left of the Wan family. If you die in this palace, how could your late uncle and parents ever rest in peace? Let me take you away. We'll run away together, to the ends of the earth. Far away from this dangerous place. I thought it through. Back then, I was too much of a coward. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I only hope you'll let me do something for you. I made up my mind. I don't want to be some consort prince, and I don't want the princess either. The only my love is you. It has always been you. I just hope you can give me a chance. He spoke with such passion and sincerity, his face filled with tenderness and remorse. He was a completely different person from the man who had called me a bitch that day. I sneered inwardly. Where on earth did Song Zhao get the nerve to think I'd fall for such a clumsy lie? Seeing that I remained completely unmoved, Song Zhao pulled out a letter. This is a letter I wrote to my family. In it, I've made it clear that I'm taking you away, and that I'm severing all ties with the Song family. This is proof of my sincerity. If you don't believe me, you can hand this letter over to the emperor. If you do, it will mean certain death for me. But if you can trust me just this once, then meet me on the east side of the Imperial Garden tonight. We will escape this place together. I've already arranged for people to help us slip away. With that, Song Zhao stuffed the letter into my hand. I immediately set the letter on fire and watched it burn to ashes. I didn't doubt that the contents of the letter matched exactly what he had said. But I certainly didn't believe Song Zhao was the one who wrote it. So handing it over to the emperor would be completely useless. It was such a clumsy trap. Why did they ever think I would fall for it? But then, I thought about it and realized the truth. Perhaps they never expected me to believe it in the first place. On the contrary, they wanted me to be blinded by revenge and hand the letter over to the emperor myself. Because even if I did hand it over, besides, they have ways to prove that the letter wasn't even written by Song Zhao. And the emperor is naturally suspicious. He'd end up believing that Song Zhao and I are having a secret, forbidden affair. With just a little nudge from them at that moment, I would end up suffering the exact same tragic fate as my sister. Just thinking about it sends a chill down my spine. Noble Consort Song's scheme is absolutely ruthless. But since she decided to strike first, well, I'll just have to play her little game. With that in mind, I quickly grabbed some parchment and penned a letter of my own.
If Song Zhao wants me to run away with him so badly,
Then I'll give him exactly what he wants. Once I finished, I sent a young maid to Chuying Palace to summon Shoyao. I handed the letter over to her and strictly instructed her to deliver it to Song Kai personally. Whatever you do, make sure not a single soul finds out about this. Shoyao noted. Second miss, please rest assured, even if it costs me my life, I will never let a word slip. I smiled and nodded in approval. Shoyao, in this massive palace, you are the only one I have. Once Shoyao left, I immediately had a young maid inform the Imperial Selection Bureau that I had caught a cold and would not be able to attend to His Majesty tonight. Have them remove my nameplate from the nightly selection. As night fell, a young eunuch I had stationed near the Imperial study came to report. Choting Palace had just sent word that the second prince was feeling unwell and begged the emperor to visit them.
I couldn't help but smirk.
Noble consort Song was finally making her move.
Now it was time for me to play my part.
I retired to bed exceptionally early
And ordered all the maids to stay outside the courtyard.
I wanted absolutely no one guarding my bedchamber. This highly unusual setup was intentionally designed for Noble Consort Song's spies to see. I wanted her to believe that I was definitely up to something suspicious. And so, I waited in the quiet darkness, eager and anticipating the show to begin. Suddenly, through the quiet of the night, the sound of a commotion woke me from my slumber. Then, I faintly sensed someone entering my chamber, accompanied by the familiar scent of dragon ambergris. I knew instantly the emperor had arrived. I quickly closed my eyes, pretending to still be fast asleep. I could feel his gaze on me. And then, a very audible sigh of relief when he saw me lying safely in bed.
Almost immediately, he turned and hurried back out.
I smiled to myself. I knew my trap had been sprung.
The next morning, as soon as I woke up,
my personal maid rushed in to tell me that something massive had happened last night. She said a royal guard and Shoyao, a maid from Chungjing Palace, were caught having a secret tryst. And they were caught red-handed by Noble Consort Song. The emperor happened to be at Chungjing Palace that night too.
He immediately ordered them to be flogged to death on the spot.
I just smiled and didn't say a word. But just as I was about to have my meal, Noble Consort Song stormed in with a cold face, leading her entourage. I stepped forward to pay my respects. Wishing you peace, Noble Consort. Noble Consort. Song let out a cold sneer. I truly underestimated you. What a shame Shoyao had to lose her life for this. I stood up and met her gaze dead on. Yoel helped you frame my sister. Now she's finally getting what she deserves. Hoel was Noble Consort Song's pawn all along.
From the moment I entered the palace, she couldn't wait to whisper secrets to me about what happened back then.
That was my first clue. Her eager-to-please, loyal act
Was clearly a trap. Noble Consort Song wanted to plant her by my side as a spy.
Think about it. If she weren't one of Noble Consort Song's people, how could she have survived in Chungjing Palace for all these years? Years ago, when my sister was framed, she couldn't even defend herself to the emperor, because the first prince had suddenly come down with a high fever. That fever was just too convenient. Back then, Shoya was the chief maid, personally tending to the first prince. She was always so meticulous. How could she have allowed him to fall sick like that? And the fever kept coming back. Over and over.
Right after that, my sister was poisoned to death. The Wayang Palace was the empress's quarters.
How could an outsider slip in and poison her without a sound? My sister was locked away inside her own palace by the emperor. And she died there. The killer had to be someone on the inside. And Shoya was the prime suspect. Every clue pointed to one thing. Shoya belonged to Noble Consort Song. So, I beat them at their own game. I used Shoya to deliver a letter, pretending to agree to elope with Song Zhao. Noble Consort, Song and Song Zhao were bound to believe it. And even if they had doubts, they couldn't resist taking the bait. After all, they had nothing to lose. To them, a royal guard was just a disposable pawn. But what they didn't know was that I had already ordered 2 young eunuchs to drug Shoyao and dump her at the rendezvous spot right on time. I wasn't worried about Shoyao trying to drag me down with her because she had absolutely no proof. The handwriting on that letter wasn't even mine. Besides, Noble Consort Song is the one who should be terrified of a royal investigation. Because if the emperor starts digging, I won't be the only one whose secrets are dragged into the light. Shoya OP with her life. Then what? Do you expect me to pay with my life too? I looked at Noble Consort Song, a cold smile playing on my lips. Then we shall see, your highness. Noble Consort Song sneered. Yan Yu, don't celebrate just yet. If I could get rid of your sister, I can get rid of you just as easily. With that, Noble Consort Song whipped her sleeves and stormed off. That evening, the first prince came to see me. Can't you just stay out of trouble for once? I simply smiled and remained silent. The first prince stared at me for a long while, then sighed. I promise you.
Once I ascend the throne, I will definitely clear the one family's name. But stop going head-to-head with Noble Consort Song.
You're the only one who will suffer. I still didn't say a word. Frustrated, the first prince snapped. Why must you be so incredibly stubborn? I pointed at a dragon-patterned inkstick on the table. This was a birthday gift from your mother years ago.
Your birthday is coming up.
Over all these years, I've never really given you anything. So I'm giving this ink stick to you.
Consider it a token of appreciation from both my sister and me.
This ink stick holds my sister's painstaking efforts.
You must use it wisely. The first prince glanced at the dragon-patterned ink stick on the table.
Then he turned and gave me a deep, lingering look. Finally, he picked up the ink stick and left. Watching the first prince's departing figure, I let out a soft sigh. I truly hope he doesn't let my sister's efforts go to waste.
The day after I gave him the ink stick was the first prince's birthday.
Since the first prince was still underage, a modest banquet was held at Chunjing Hall. I had no desire to see noble consort Song, so I claimed illness and didn't go.
I heard that the emperor showered the first prince with praise throughout the banquet.
The banquet wrapped up quickly,
But in the dead of night, chaos broke out at Chunjing Hall.
every single royal physician from the Imperial Medical Academy was summoned. Word spread that the first prince had been poisoned.
Upon hearing the news, I rushed over as well. Chunjing Hall was in complete uproar.
The emperor and noble consort Song sat out in the courtyard, while the rest of the eunuchs and maids knelt across the entire yard.
Guards were tearing the rooms apart, searching every corner.
Acting as if the emperor and noble consort Song weren't even there, I walked straight inside.
I rushed to the bedside and saw the first prince lying there, his face deathly pale.
Large beads of sweat kept pouring down his forehead. He was muttering something incoherently, looking to be in immense pain. The imperial physician was pricking him with needles to drain the poisoned blood.
I sat by the bedside and took the first prince's hand.
Then, I began to softly hum a lullaby.
Tears streaming down my cheeks.
If only sister were still here. This was the very lullaby my sister used to sing to put the first prince to sleep.
For all these years, I had always wanted to hum it to him again.
As I hummed, the trembling first prince slowly began to calm down,
Looking as if he had drifted off to sleep.
I knew the emperor was watching. This scene must have made him deeply miss how my sister used to soothe the first prince to sleep.
I looked up at the emperor.
My eyes brimming with tears. Your Majesty, let me raise him. The emperor's expression froze.
He couldn't bring himself to say no. Noble consort Song panicked and quickly pleaded to the emperor. Your Majesty, this was my oversight. I promise it will never happen again.
I remained silent.
Just staring quietly at the emperor. Enough. Although the first prince's poisoning was not your fault, you have still been negligent in his upbringing. Managing the imperial harem while caring for the second prince has clearly drained your energy.
Consort Chuan is new to the palace and must be lonely. It would be good to have the first prince keep her company, he declared, sealing the decision. Noble consort Song was left speechless.
That very night, the first prince was moved to the Weiyang Palace.
Meanwhile, noble consort Song was ordered by the emperor to thoroughly investigate the poisoning.
But unfortunately for her, she would never find the culprit.
After all, the poison has already been disposed of. I had rubbed my sister's blood over and over again on one end of that dragon-carved pine suit ink stick. As soon as the ink stick was ground, the poison would dissolve into the ink.
The first prince has a habit of licking his brush when he writes. It is a habit he has had since he started practicing calligraphy at 3 years old.
My sister tried to correct it many times, but to no avail. Eventually, she just let him be. The emperor was bound to test the first prince's studies at the birthday banquet.
That is why I gifted him that ink stick. I didn't use much. Poison. So it took some time to take effect. And that delay was more than enough time for the little eunuch serving the first prince to wash the inkstone and brushes clean. Thus, there was absolutely nothing left to investigate. Everything played out exactly as I had planned. Consort Song couldn't find a single clue.
Because of this, the emperor was furious, constantly lashing out at the harem, leaving everyone in a state of constant panic. No one dared to show their face. They are
terrified of bringing bad luck upon themselves. As for the first prince, he woke up 3 days later.
He just stared at me, completely silent. He wasn't even surprised to find himself in Weiyang Palace.
Have some porridge. You just woke up, so you can't eat anything heavy yet.
I walked over to him, holding the bowl of porridge. The first prince took the bowl and ate in silence. Only after he finished every last drop did he finally speak.
What's your plan?
I took the empty bowl back and gave him a gentle smile. You're still too young.
You don't need to do a single thing. Just wait.
That throne will definitely be yours.
With that, I got up to leave.
But my dismissive attitude clearly annoyed him.
I'm not some ordinary child. Of course I knew he wasn't. He was incredibly sharp.
That was how he had survived in this ruthless harem. It was why he understood my hidden message. When I sent him that ink, and why he hummed that nursery rhyme that night to send a message back to me.
Without his help,
the emperor might never have agreed to let him move back to Weiyang Palace.
But taking a risk like this once was more than enough. I would handle the rest. He shouldn't have to carry such a heavy burden. I ignored his outburst and walked out with the empty bowl. Fuming with rage, the first prince threw his pillow at me and screamed, "You are unbelievable!" But that actually made me smile. Acting like that was the only time he seemed like a normal child. The first prince and I had been poisoned twice in a row, and it was the exact same poison both times. Both incidents had happened right inside Chunjing Palace. That was more than enough to arouse the emperor's suspicion. After all, it was the very same poison that had killed my sister years ago. No one would ever suspect me of doing it. After all, I had no allies of my own in this palace. There was no way I could have sneaked my hand into Chunjing Palace. So,
even though they couldn't find the culprit both times.
As the master of Kunjing Palace,
Consort Song simply couldn't escape the blame. If I could figure this out, Consort Song must have realized it too. That was why, on the 6th day, noble Consort Song dragged out a young eunuch to take the fall. Her story was that the boy had been caught stealing pastries by the first prince and scolded. So, harboring a grudge, the eunuch poisoned him.
the young eunuch was beaten to death on the spot.
How exactly was the poison administered? What kind of poison was it?
When was it slipped into his food?
The details were incredibly vague. Yet, the matter was swept under the rug just like that. The emperor chose not to look into it any further. Everything seemed to be resolved perfectly, but I wasn't disappointed. Some things can't just be brushed aside so easily. When resentment builds to a boiling point, it eventually explodes. And right now, my only goal is to get pregnant. Noble Consort Song wants the crown prince title so badly. Well, I'm going to make sure she never gets it. So, I shut the gates of Weiyang Palace. Aside from the emperor himself, I refused to see anyone who came to visit.
No matter who invited me, I didn't take a single step outside.
After all, Noble Consort Song still rules the imperial harem.
I wasn't about to walk right into a traps. The harem seemed to fall quiet all of a sudden.
The emperor, as always, loved visiting Weiyang Palace. In court, the push to name a crown prince was temporarily shelved due to the first prince's poisoning. I knew this was just the calm before the storm. Noble Consort Song is definitely plotting her next move. And the only thing I can do now is conceive an imperial heir. Fortunately, heaven favors the patient. After locking myself away in Weiyang Palace for 2 months, I was finally confirmed to be pregnant. The emperor was overjoyed. He held me tight and whispered, "This is our child. Yours and mine. This is our child." I nodded, wearing a look of pure bliss, but inside, my eyes were ice cold.
I could see a sense of relief in his eyes.
It was obvious. He felt guilty about my late sister.
After the emperor left, all sorts of rare tonics were showered upon Gang Palace.
He then personally chose a jade scepter to be sent to me. It was an unprecedented honor. Once the emperor was gone, the first prince walked over. Staring at my stomach with deep worry, he said, "For the sake of this child, you must not provoke Noble Consort Song over the next few months. Father favors you far too much. I'm terrified that Noble Consort Song will come after you." One Ernie just laughed. "This little bit of favor is far from enough. I need more, much more. I heard the emperor has a dragon-shaped jade pendant, and it would be perfect to protect my unborn child." My words made the first prince's face turn pale. He gasped, "Are you insane?" "That pendant. Father received it when he was made crown prince. It was bestowed upon him by the late emperor himself. By targeting that jade, aren't you openly declaring war on Noble Consort Song? You're telling her you're going after the throne." I simply nodded. "That's exactly right. I want her to know that I am coming for the throne." Panic flashed through the first prince's eyes. He rushed forward, grabbing my hands tightly. "What on earth are you trying to do? I only have you left now. Can't you cherish your own life for once? If you die, I'll have no choice but to call my mother's killer Mother." Even though it sounded like a threat, it actually warmed my heart. Looking at his anxious face, I smiled softly. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Hearing my reassurance, the first prince relaxed slightly and let out a small breath. But he still couldn't help but urge me anxiously, "You must stay alive. For Empress Mother's sake, you have to watch me. Grow up and watch me ascend the throne. You absolutely cannot die." I nodded once more, giving him my promise. The once quiet harem erupted into a frenzy because of my pregnancy. Before the other concubines could even process the news, another bombshell hit the palace. Word got out that, using my pregnancy as leverage, I had demanded the emperor's dragon-shaped jade pendant to protect my baby. And shocking everyone, the emperor had actually agreed. Everyone knew exactly what that jade pendant symbolized. Yet, knowing its weight, the emperor still handed it over to me. This sent a loud, undeniable message to the entire harem. If my baby turned out to be a boy, he would undoubtedly be the next crown prince. Every eye in the palace turned toward Chungjing Hall, waiting to see how Noble Consort Song would react. But to their utter disappointment, she didn't show even a hint of anger. Instead, she even sent over a generous supply of expensive prenatal tonics. I stared down at the tonics sitting before me, fiddling with the dragon-shaped jade pendant in my hand. I had to admire Noble Consort Song. She really knows how to bite her tongue, but I do hope she can keep holding it in like this. I accepted all her tonic gifts and focused on keeping my baby safe and healthy. To make myself look even more arrogant and overbearing, whenever the emperor was about to visit Chunjing Palace for the night, I would use my unstable pregnancy as an excuse to lure him over to my Weiyang Palace. Anyone with eyes could see I was deliberately picking a fight with Noble Consort Song, but the emperor kept spoiling me anyway, indulging me without any limits. Others might not understand why, but I knew. It was all out of his guilt toward my sister. In my 5th month of pregnancy, word came out from the Imperial Medical Academy. A head physician himself had personally taken my pulse and confirmed that I was carrying a baby prince. When the emperor heard the news, he aimed him, Khan, on the spot. This news sent shockwaves through everyone. The emperor actually named him Kong in the imperial lexicon. Kong refers to a sacred octagonal jade that represents the sovereign. And in the ancient rites of Zhou, the imperial Kong is the ultimate jade used to pay homage to the gods. Therefore, the imperial Kong serves as the emperor's own representative during sacred rituals. And the imperial family values rituals above all else. By choosing this name, the emperor was essentially telling the world that this baby boy was the chosen crown prince. Shortly after the news leaked, I sharply noticed unfamiliar figures lurking around the perimeter of my Weiyang palace. I knew they were spies trying to dig up information. The first prince was even more anxious than I was. He wouldn't let me leave the palace, and even urged me to stay behind closed doors to keep the baby safe. But I had absolutely no intention of keeping a low profile. In fact, I wanted to be as loud and conspicuous as possible. I made a point of taking walks in the imperial garden, and actively invited other concubines to my Weiyang palace to chat. Because of this, I met with a series of suspicious accidents. For instance, a loose stone slab in the garden nearly sent me crashing to the ground. Then, the imperial kitchen accidentally slipped blood-circulating herbs into my meals, and a clumsy maid almost ran right into me. The emperor was absolutely furious about these incidents, and punished quite a few people. But the attempts just wouldn't stop. At one point, I even started bleeding. Fortunately, the imperial physician was highly skilled. The royal baby was saved. Because of this, the emperor publicly decreed that if anyone dared to cause me a miscarriage, their entire family, all 9 generations, would be executed. This sent a shiver of terror through both the imperial court and the harem. But I only smiled. I knew my chance had finally come. In the 6th month of my pregnancy, I developed a sudden craving for pickled sour plums. To please me, the emperor ordered the imperial kitchen to send a personal cook to Weiyang Palace just to make them for me. But after eating those pickled plums for half a month, I suffered a massive hemorrhage. And just like that, I miscarried. An entire palace was thrown into absolute shock. The emperor ordered the cook to be brutally tortured, but she did nothing but cry out her innocence. In the end, she took her own life in her cell, which only made the emperor's rage burn hotter. He ordered a relentless investigation into her background. Eventually, they discovered that just last month, she had secretly sent a massive amount of money to her family, telling them to flee the capital and live far away. Her family had indeed run away, but they ended up getting trapped by a sudden flash flood. With nowhere else to go, they had no choice but to return to the capital, which was exactly how they were caught. And imperial guards traced those banknotes straight to a low-level manager in the Song family. The emperor was absolutely livid. He ordered the manager to be dragged in immediately. After a brutal interrogation, the manager finally broke and confessed the truth. He admitted that a secret letter had been sent from the palace, ordering them to destroy Consort 1 unborn child at all costs. Though he didn't explicitly name Noble Consort Song, the truth was already glaringly obvious. Before the emperor could even order her arrest, Noble Consort Song rushed to the gates of Weiyang Palace and fell to her knees. "Your Majesty, I am innocent!" I could hear her desperate cries echoing from outside. He was already fully formed. He was a little prince. He was so small. What sin could he possibly have committed? He didn't even get the chance to call me mother or to call you father. And now, he's gone. Hearing my devastating words, the emperor's face filled with a mixture of profound grief and rage. He squeezed my hand tightly. I will avenge him. The guards dragged Noble Consort Song into the room. She instantly threw herself at the emperor's feet. "Your Majesty, I swear I didn't do this. It's true that I have never liked Consort 1, but I would never do anything to hurt your child. I have always treated the first prince as if he were my very own. How could I possibly harm an unborn child?" "Shut up, you venomous wretch. Do you honestly think I know nothing of your schemes? Just to get me to visit your Chunjing palace more often, you had the physician prescribe fever-inducing medicine to the 3-year-old first prince. And to keep him from focusing on his studies, you ordered the young eunuchs to distract him with worthless games. And now you have the nerve to tell me you treated him like your own son?" The emperor's words left Noble Consort Song completely frozen in shock. She thought she had kept all her dirty work perfectly hidden, never imagining that the emperor knew everything all along. Back when the elder minister Wan stood at the palace gates begging for justice, you sent the palace eunuchs to mock and ridicule him. In the end, unable to bear the humiliation, the old minister died right at those gates. You paid to have Consort Yan tortured in the Jiafang quarters, and even looked for ways to have her killed. And once Consort 1 became pregnant, the loose stones in the imperial garden, the safflower mixed into her tonics, and the unfamiliar maid who collided with her. "Do you dare to deny any of this?" the emperor demanded furiously. Noble Consort Song had absolutely nothing to say. A cold, piercing gaze flickered in my eyes, but I quickly masked it. Noble Consort Song glared at me, and then cried out, "Your Majesty! You've been bewitched by Yan Yu. My Song family may have made mistakes, but we have always been fiercely loyal to you." The emperor closed his eyes and let out a long sigh. "Yes, mistakes were made, and the first mistake was made 4 years ago. I know everything you did to King Sheng. All these years, I chose not to speak of it, because I was trying to appease both sides, and because I was too proud to admit my own mistakes. It is my fault that things have come to this. I wrongly blamed the late empress. I let your Song family run wild, allowing you to murder my unborn child. I cannot let this go on. With that, the Ojo turned his cold gaze to noble consort Song. Includ, hear my decree. Noble consort Song, for poisoning the imperial heir, banish her to the cold palace, and exile every last member of the Song family to the barren borders. Hearing this, noble consort Song collapsed to the floor, paralyzed with fear. The Song family was dealt with swiftly. To appease me, the emperor degraded the first prince as the crown prince. I had just woken up when he rushed into my chambers, clutching the imperial decree. Was it really worth sacrificing an unborn child? Just for me? I nodded. Yes, it was worth it. That man doesn't deserve to have me, Wan Charon, bear his children. The moment I found out I was pregnant, I planned to use my unborn child to destroy noble consort Song. So, all those attempts to make me miscarry? While some were indeed planned by noble consort Song, most of them were actually my own doing. I did it all to fuel the emperor's hatred toward her, and to make him believe she was absolutely determined to kill his child. As for those secret letters sent to the Song family, the first prince was the one who orchestrated that. After all, he lived in Chujing Palace for 4 years. He had a few loyal confidants there. Besides, the Song family was already terrified of my unborn child. So when they received the fake message from Chunjing Palace, they took action, without a single shred of doubt. But what they never expected was that every single move they made was watched by the first prince and me. So how could they possibly escape? Suddenly, the first prince dropped to his knees before me. Ants, I miss Mother so much. Looking at his eyes, which looked so much like hers, my tears surged. I miss my sister too. Wiping my tears, I said, "You must work hard. You are the crown prince now. Once you ascend the throne, you must clear the Wan family's name and restore our honor." The first prince looked at me. Imperial father, he... Don't mention that man, I interrupted. He is a coward. A man so weak, he doesn't even dare admit his own mistakes. He failed your mother. He failed you. And he failed every single soul in our Wan family. And, don't worry. From now on, I will protect you. I was wrong. This mistake has haunted me for 4 years. And Qingqing has been gone for 4 years because of it. For 4 years, I didn't even dare to get close to our child, terrified that looking at him would only remind me of her. I thought I would have to live out the rest of my days carrying this endless regret. But I never expected heaven would grant me one more chance. She made me see Qingqing's younger sister. Standing there on the stage, it was like Qingqing had come back to life. But when I saw blood trickling from her lips, my heart clenched in agonizing pain. I swore right then, this time, I would save Qingqing. Fortunately, the poison wasn't lethal. She survived. With her, I finally felt alive again. Every single move she made was identical to Qingqing. I greedily soaked in every second of it. I knew she was only acting like Qingqing, but I didn't care. As long as she made me feel like Qingqing was still with me, that was enough. The night the first prince was poisoned, when she sat by his bedside humming a lullaby, I truly felt like Qingqing had come home. So, when she stubbornly insisted on raising the first prince herself, I agreed. I even felt a surge of pure joy. When I found out she was pregnant, I thought I'd go crazy with happiness. It felt like a continuation of my life with Qingqing. I swore I would cherish this child with all my heart. I would even hand the throne over to him. But there are always those who want to ruin everything. The Song family has overstepped. I swear, if they dare to step out of line again, I will slaughter every last one of them. When I heard about her miscarriage, it felt like my entire world collapsed. I'll tell Qingqing slipping further and further away from me. I was so terrified of that feeling. When she looked up at me, her face drenched in tears, it dragged me right back to 4 years ago. Back then, Qingqing had looked at me with those exact same eyes. If only I had trusted her even a little bit back then. Would everything have turned out differently? I know there is something highly suspicious about her miscarriage. But to give Qingqing closure, I will make up for all my past mistakes, even if those mistakes happened 4 years ago. I only hope that in the afterlife, Qingqing will let me see her one last time, just so I can tell her how sorry I am.